Imagine a world where the devastating impact of heat waves can be directly linked to the actions of a handful of oil giants. This may seem like a shocking concept, but a groundbreaking new analysis has made this very connection, revealing that carbon emissions from the world's biggest fossil fuel companies have been directly tied to dozens of deadly heat waves for the first time. But here's where it gets controversial. The research suggests that the emissions from just one of the 14 largest companies are enough to cause over 50 heat waves that would have been virtually impossible otherwise. The study's findings are being hailed as a leap forward in the fight to hold big oil accountable for the damages caused by the climate crisis. And this is the part most people miss. The carbon pollution from these companies is not just contributing to the problem, but is actually the primary cause of these heat waves. For example, the emissions from ExxonMobil's fossil fuels made 51 heat waves at least 10,000 times more likely than in an unheated world, while the emissions from Saudi Aramco had a similar impact. The consequences of these heat waves are staggering, with global heating contributing to at least 500,000 heat-related deaths every year. The searing heat wave that struck the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. in 2021, for instance, was made almost 3°C hotter due to the climate crisis. The new research found that the total emissions from the 180 carbon major companies included in the analysis were responsible for about half the increase in intensity, with emissions due to forest destruction making up most of the rest. But what, as Prof. Sonia Seneviratne, a senior author of the new report, noted, being able to trace back the contribution of these single carbon major emitters and quantify their contribution could be very useful for establishing potential liability. Dr. Davide Ferranda, a research director at the French National Center for Scientific Research, added, "This study adds a crucial new step. It connects the dots between specific climate disasters and the companies whose emissions made them possible. This bridge could become a cornerstone for legal and policy action to hold polluters accountable." Cassidy DiPaola, a spokesperson for the Make Polluters Pay campaign, emphasized, "We can now point to specific heat waves and say, Saudi Aramco did this, ExxonMobil did this. When their emissions alone are triggering heat waves that wouldn't have happened otherwise, we're talking about real people who died, real crops that failed, and real communities that suffered, all because of decisions made in corporate boardrooms." The world's highest court, the International Court of Justice, has ruled that failing to prevent climate harm could result in having to pay compensation, while a German high court has set a legal precedent that fossil fuel companies could be held liable for their contribution. As DiPaola said, "Here's the evidence the courts have been waiting for. The bill is coming due, and it's time these polluters pay for the damage they've done." The research, published in the journal Nature, used a type of analysis called attribution to compare the hotter world today with the world before mass burning of fossil fuels. The scientists first worked out how much each carbon major's emissions had pushed up temperatures, and then how much these higher temperatures increased the likelihood of heat waves. Previous research has linked hundreds of individual events to global heating, but this study is the first to systematically analyze a series of events. Climate change has made each of the 213 heat waves more likely and more intense, and the situation has worsened over time. According to Dr. Jan-Quil Kyle, the lead author of the study, the research found that the increase in average intensity of the heat waves rose from 1.4°C in 2000 to 2009 to 2.2°C in 2020 to 23. The 213 major heat waves assessed happened from 2000 to 2023 and spanned every continent, although Africa and South America were significantly underrepresented due to lack of reporting and suitable weather data. Dr. Friederike Otto noted that the study's findings likely underestimate the true scale of these events, and the real consequences are probably far greater. Even the emissions from the fossil fuel companies at the bottom of the list of carbon majors had a significant impact on heat waves, causing 16 heat waves to become at least 10,000 times more likely than before the climate crisis. Dr. Karsten Hostein said, "This study is a leap forward that could be used to support future climate lawsuits. It is also a reminder that denial and anti-science rhetoric will not make climate liability go away." But here's the question. Will this new evidence be enough to hold these polluters accountable? The problem is that various legal issues must be resolved before scientists can take the witness stand, including which courts should hear the cases and whether fossil fuel producers should be liable for their customers' emissions. As Prof. Michael Gerard and Dr. Jessica Wentz noted, the new study is one more building block, and a useful one. But the road to actual liability for the carbon majors is still littered with legal and evidentiary potholes. So we ask you, do you think it's time for these polluters to pay for the damage they've done? Should they be held accountable for the devastating impact of their emissions? Let us know in the comments.